Joining us on the phones right now, chairman of the Lubbock County Republican Party, who had a really good seat for last night's State of the Union address. It's Steve Evans, who was at the State of the Union last night. Steve, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm tired. I'm going to tell you what. Washington, D.C., you don't do anything but walk.
Yeah. Do they not have scooters where you can get on the scooters and go everywhere?
I cannot bring myself to do the scooter, Chad. They've got the scooters, but last night, especially with the State of the Union, the perimeter access to the Capitol and all the office buildings, everything was just locked down. I almost got an Uber driver thrown in jail. He was doing his best to get me right up to the door, and Secret Service, Capitol Police were not having it. So I jumped out and walked to avoid him being in prison.
So, okay, before we get into the actual speech, obviously most people have never been to a State of the Union. Kind of like, how early do you have to get there? What's the process like of actually getting into the State of the Union address?
Well, actually pretty simple. It's the same type of security that you're going to go through entering the Capitol. You're going to go through a metal detector, possibly a pat-down, X-rays, much like entering the airport. We had to be in the gallery by 8:15, or at least in line, and we passed through a typical TSA body scanner, and they confiscated everything. I thought they were going to take my belt and my shoes too, but they took cell phones, pens, everything away from us. And evidently that's standard practice entering either gallery for the Senate or the House. No matter what, you're not allowed to take pictures in the gallery ever.
Right.
So thought I'd get a great picture, get a selfie, something that just didn't happen. So process really relatively simple. As you can imagine, there were people everywhere, really, really hard to get in. But and a member has to escort you almost anywhere you go. Everything's locked down so much. You've got to have your congressman or your senator with you to escort you to the gallery where they drop you off to security. So not real hard getting in, but just a lot of shuffle and a lot of just people everywhere.
Well, obviously you've watched the State of the Unions before. What's it like being there?
Well, what's different about it? It's the same speech you saw, and you probably had a better view of the president than I did with the cameras. But what you do get to see that even the members on the floor don't get to see is the reaction of a large group of people. So you get to see the entire field of Democrats and the ladies in white bickering and pointing fingers and laughing, and you get to see all that. You get to see whether your senator stands up or not, whether you can see all that and they can't. So that was really interesting. It was just that different perspective.
Yeah. And so what did you think about the speech overall last night?
Well, I was pleased with the speech. It was a long speech. He didn't disappoint. It was a very long speech, really an unprecedented amount of guests that he recognized up in the gallery, a great field of guests. But there was a lot of discussion yesterday in all the various functions I was in and people that I was talking to about whether the president would talk about abortion. Yeah. It was one of the things that I went to hear the president say. I was very excited that he brought it up. And that was really kind of the shock for me, or the highlight was hearing him challenge Congress to take on abortion.
Well, and I said it last night on the reaction video that I did on Periscope and on YouTube, and it was, I can't remember the last time a president brought up abortion during the State of the Union address, pressed Democrats and really pressed Congress to pass a law outlawing third trimester abortion, and calling out the sadness that is late term or even after birth abortion. I can't remember a president doing that. It's been a while. I don't remember it.
It was kind of surreal. Of course, I would have loved to for him to take it further and challenge Congress to completely eliminate abortion. We're not there as a country yet, I don't think. I don't think the country's ready to embrace completely abolishing abortion as a whole. But it's certainly a step in the right direction, and I was very excited that our president took the time to mention it.
Yeah, obviously there were times where Democrats did not stand up and Democrats refused to stand up. There were one of the times when the president said that if he were not elected president, the U.S. would be in a war with North Korea. These were times where you heard, at least on television, you heard Democrats moan and groan. What were those moments like, being in the room?
Those moments are really interesting because there was actually a time where Ocasio-Cortez turned around and barked at the handful of ladies that as a general rule, that Cortez didn't stand up at all for anything. I don't think I saw her clap once. Maybe she stood up and clapped for a World War II veteran, but I'm not sure she actually did. But there were a few times when six to eight ladies in white were standing up and clapping, and I literally saw her turn around and bark to them to sit down.
Wow.
Just interesting. They were laughing. They were being disrespectful. And I've always thought, even going back to George W. Bush, if you'll remember, one of the big highlights where he upset the House when he talked about reforming Social Security. And then Senator Clinton and several ladies jumped up and hollered and screamed and laughed, and they were completely disrespectful. And it was really the first time that I really truly noticed the Democrats during the State of the Union being blatantly disrespectful to the president. It's not something that the Republicans are known for doing. They respect the chamber, they respect the office, even if you don't agree with it. So that was really obvious last night, just blatantly blaring in your face in giant bright white that there was a level of disrespect there for the presidency, and nothing that he's going to say or do is going to generate any applause for them, other than when he talks about, it's a great moment, he talked about women in Congress, and it just kind of blew him off. So, yeah, thanks for that. You didn't have to do that. I didn't expect it. It was really funny in typical Donald Trump style.
Yeah, I thought I thought it was a great speech, and I think he is a master at. He did this in the last State of the Union. He did it again in this State of the Union, of giving lines that everyone should universally applaud and stand up for, and catching the Democrats just sitting down and forcing them to own that. And again, whether you use that in a campaign or not, in campaign ads, it shows the absolute resistance that the left has going against this president right now.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And even Chuck Schumer was on the news last night talking about, well, the president's going to call for unity, and we're just not having it. It was just obvious when he called for unity, and the speaker was ordering her dinner or whatever it was she was doing.
Yeah. Could you read her menu, by the way, that she had behind the?
I did. So what's interesting? Let me give you the backstory to that. What she had in her hand was actually. Whether it be resolutions or it's the business of the House. There's a little bit more that happens after the cameras cut away. They have to close out the joint session. There's a few motions and things that the parliamentary procedure that has to be done to actually end the State of the Union, and that's what she had. She knows how it works. So while she's reading it, I mean, unless she had a Jimmy John's menu tucked in there and was ordering some delivery to her office, there wasn't any reason other than to just be blatantly disrespectful and uninterested. And I think that was probably the best word I could use. They were attempting to be completely uninterested in what the president had to say, to show zero support, no matter what it is. I mean, when you talk about the number of people now not on food stamps and unemployment at an all-time low, I don't care what party you're from. Is that not a good thing?
Yeah.
Is that not something to be proud of and cheer for? The Democrats, they just want to keep all the people on food stamps because those are voters. He's taking their voters away, and they're not happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Visiting with Steve Evans, chairman of the Lubbock County Republican Party. I thought another great moment last night was when the president and you didn't get to see this part because it was great theater. It was great television when the president said there will not be socialism in the United States, and the camera immediately cut to Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders had this worried look on his face. That was maybe the only thing you missed was that, but you could of course see it on video. But what was that moment like when the president talked about socialism in that room?
And I could see the back of AOC's head, too. So I tell you, Chad, and I put it on Facebook last night, that was the proudest moment I had at the State of the Union, not because of what the president said, but seated next to me was a young man, Army Ranger Battalion. He had been injured, was on a cane, and I helped him on occasion up and down on his feet and sitting back down. He was in pain. He was uncomfortable. He had to stop, you don't do this, but he had to stop and go back through security to use the facilities. So the guy was just really honored to be there. It was difficult for him to stand up, but when the president said there will not be socialism on this country, this Ranger got to his feet faster than I did to applaud, and that was a great moment.
Very good, Steve. Good for you for getting to go to the State of the Union address. Thanks for calling in today and letting us know how it went. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, Chad, if I can just for a second, I don't know where you're having your break. I just, I want to tell you what a gracious host Congressman Arrington is. Just and his staff, just a phenomenal group of people. But what I did notice walking around with him, he is very respected in the Capitol. There are congressmen that come up and make it a point to visit with him. He's got an air about him. There's no doubt in my mind that we sent the right man to represent us, and it was a pleasure to see him in action and see how well he's actually representing the people of West Texas. So, gracious host, so many things to do here. I've got to come back with the family, but I encourage everyone to come see your congressman in his environment, in his office. A lot of tech students, a lot of tech alumni in the office floating around. So you're at home and you're with friends when you come.
All right. Very nice. Steve, thank you very much. And if you have a chance, get on one of those scooters today and let us know how it goes, okay?
I'm not sure I want any video of that, Chad, but I might give it a try.
Steve Evans, chairman of the Lubbock County Republican Party, thank you very much. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Chad.
Have a good one. That's Steve Evans.